Hello, Mark Red Larson here for the Dreamcatcher podcast. Thanks for joining us. Today, my guest is Raymond Freitas. How are you doing today?
Doing well, Mark. How about yourself?
I'm doing awesome. It's a great day. Every day's a great day. So Raymond, where are you located at?
I'm located in a small town south of Oakland, San Leandro, California. Weather's beautiful. Doesn't get it. It can get hot here, but sometimes we get the fog rolling in and it cools everything off. That happened a couple of days ago. But right now it's getting pretty warm again, and
Mhm.
you know, but it's the weather's less severe than some of the states that you're a part of. So.
Like where we're at. I mean, we had a tornado last Saturday, and a few weeks ago we had hail. I mean, yeah, we have really had violent weather this year. So in the Great Plains. So
Yeah,
are you?
the
Go ahead.
only thing here I would say is fire season is getting worse and worse and worse because of the dryness, and
Yep.
so we're going to be dealing with wildfires probably for a long, long time.
I'm glad. I'm glad we don't have to deal with that in Nebraska. Maybe up in the northern part, maybe. But so, are you born and raised there?
I was born and raised for the most part in San Leandro. There was a period of 2 years when my parents divorced when I was five, that I lived in Pleasanton. But I was always going visiting my grandmother and my dad constantly, so it was never really at one spot. As an only child, I was like, I'm either here or there. So I just kind of learned that home was wherever where a family member was, which I have in my book, which I'm editing it right now. It's going to take a long time, but what I have is just it just seemed like I was the center of attention growing up
Uh huh.
because I was the baby of the family, and my uncles, my step uncles, my family in Montana, and when there's a baby in the family, everybody gets excited, and just
True. That is very
so
true.
everybody was excited. And so I was loved everywhere I went, even though I had a very challenging childhood living with my mother, who's um, had some
Hmm.
challenges herself. I won't get into her story here, but it was just her stress became my stress,
I can understand that.
and her her my stepdad actually ended up dying when I was 13, so he was 42
Wow.
years old. They weren't married yet, but I
Okay.
think it was headed into marriage, but definitely my mom. This was my mom's love of his life, and then he drowns in the ocean going to abalone hunting,
Ah,
and
that's
so
too
that
bad.
kind of was the turning point of my mom. I mean, letting herself go, and me being going into high school and kind of just not knowing where I fit in, and because my values are much older than a lot of the kids going to high school. So
Okay.
it was difficult. I don't know how old my soul is, but it's ancient. So
Mm-hmm. I know what you mean. My soul is definitely. I call myself an old soul,
yeah,
and so I can kind of relate. People are like old soul. It's like, yeah. I mean, like we were talking before the podcast. If you're not at that, I don't know, awakening level, whatever, it doesn't mean much to you. It's just somebody saying it.
speaking about awakening, I know a lot of people are seeing angel numbers these days.
Mm-hmm. Me, myself included.
Yeah. So what happened was I started seeing them everywhere I went. My video game would stop at the angel numbers all the time. I would see them on my phone. I was like, "Am I crazy? I'm seeing all these numbers." Then
Mhm.
my wife started seeing them when she opened up her. I started seeing them when I opened up my business. Then she started seeing them when she opened up her business.
Right.
And it's almost like a whole gate has been opened up from the heavens for people to kind of tapped into. And this is what
Yep.
I think the second coming of Christ means. It's a form of consciousness in which the world is raised vibrationally,
I agree.
um, and half the world's gonna struggle and steal and do all the horrible things. The other half the world is gonna wake up and try to make it better. So we have
Yep.
half the world that. Well, I just over here in Oakland, 80 people broke into a 76 gas station and just ransacked the whole thing after a car after a whole what was they called, sideshow. They call them the sideshow here in
Okay.
California. So they 80 literally 80 people at 4:30 a.m. in the morning just ransacks the 70. So we
Wow.
have that we have to worry about when we go to Oakland is the police force is not good. The money management is not good. They have to sell. They have to sell the Oakland Coliseum just to get their money back.
Oh
So the
my
crime in
gosh.
Oakland has just gotten so out of hand. I mean, there are certain pockets in Oakland you can go to where it's safe if you're with
Uh-huh.
someone. But the fact is, San Leandro's right down the street from it.
Mm-hmm.
Makes it to where you probably shouldn't go walking at night in your neighborhood.
Wow, that is very scary. I mean, that is very scary.
Right, right. Well, I have a lot of respect in this town as a former substitute teacher and
Okay.
also spiritual happiness coach. So, and I know a lot of people, I actually know two politicians in this area. So I doubt anything will going to happen to my house.
No, that's true. And you can't live in fear. I mean, because I mean, that just I always think if you
Hey,
what
Mark, you
you
paused.
you'll bring the fear, the fear will basically take you over. So Raymond, we talked about angel numbers for the people on the podcast. Can you explain what angel numbers are? I mean, to people that don't wouldn't know what they are.
Well, now I give them as a tip when I go to the restaurant. So I'll tip an angel.
Me too, actually.
I'll just tip them an angel number, and then they immediately think you're like sent from the heavens or something like that.
Hmm. I mean, I do angel numbers bad. I fill my vehicle up so it ends on angel numbers. I mean, it's if angel numbers are. I mean, it becomes your
Well,
life. You see them
there's
everywhere.
well, actually, if you want to really stem from back history, numbers are known to have a certain vibrational tendency. It's how the
Mm.
universe communicates with us. So I would say the first person to really believe that numbers or numerology was Pythagoras. So he's the one that
Okay,
came up
yeah.
with numerology.
Mm-hmm.
And he thought numbers had some sort of meaning, energetic. I mean, Pythagoras came up with the Pythagorean theorem, which is one of the most simplest ways of mathematical formulas. It's so
Mm-hmm.
amazing. But
Right.
he was also a very spiritually inclined man, and he viewed numbers as a way to maybe his connection to Zeus at that time. I have no clue because he was a Greek philosopher.
Yeah, I'm not
So
sure.
he kind of came up with the concept that what numbers mean. I have an angel number app. So if you get like a 911, which is one I get all the time, you go 9 plus 1 plus 1. So 9 plus
Mm.
1 is 10. 10
Yep.
plus 2 is 11. Then you
Yep.
go 1 plus 1 equals 2. So that would be 2. And that's the message of the day. So you can look it up
Okay.
online. You can look it up in an angel number app, and that's what you'll see. Or you don't have to do all that. You could just accept it, embrace that you're in another portal. I like to say that we get into different portals when we sleep.
Right.
So
Oh yeah.
people that are that's why you see which when you go walk around, half the time people don't even notice you.
True. Yeah, very true.
They don't even see you when they notice you. So we're in different portals. And so the people that are getting angel numbers are probably ones that are going to start to kind of turn this world around. The people that aren't getting angel numbers are the ones that are going to have to follow us.
Yeah. No, I agree. It wasn't that long ago. I didn't even know what angel numbers were, but now it is my life. It is pretty much like 11, 11, 10, 10, 2. There's so many different angel numbers. I get basically
Right. I think I
new
said
ones every day. So I
we
got
said this before
265
we went
yesterday.
live,
So
but one of the easiest purchases my wife was buying angel number necklaces in her business.
uh huh.
So we're like, it's like, well, this is where my business and your business come together.
Yeah, perfect.
So we have a shop tomorrow in the show. We're doing Saturday and Sunday together, selling clothes and jewelry. Um, but I want to talk about something that's very challenging. I think now that we all
Okay.
kind of went through the last 3 years is I've been trying to build a business with so much caregiving, and
Right.
that's a very challenging thing. And I think a lot of other coaches have to go through similar things. A lot of other business owners, it's like you put time in your business, but then something over here happens, and we have to attack that over here.
Exactly. Yes.
and then you put work over here, and then this happens again, and you have to go over
Yeah, it's kind
here.
of yeah.
You have to juggle it. You have to
You
juggle it.
do, yeah, oh, very much.
Yeah, so you just have to juggle it. And the fact that since eight, well, I went through my. Well, I'm going to talk about some of these awakenings I've gone through in my life. So my first
Okay,
one was when I was 17. It was kind of launched by my junior prom date.
okay,
I was a Cancer. She was actually a Pisces, which is actually the best relationship duo if you could find for a Cancer.
really, okay.
She was not interested in me to be in a relationship, but I had no clue that's what that friends just ask friends to go to the junior prom. So in my mind, I'm thinking, is she interested in me? Is she not? Grandma,
Right, right.
Grandma Agnes just died. I was like, well, I could possibly maybe have someone in my life, but she wasn't the right person. She was spiritually sick. She was hopping from relationship to relationship. But we ended up going right towards the junior prom. I find out she's bringing two dates, me and someone else,
Oh, really? That's interesting.
and I'm like, what?
Yeah, I would have said the same thing.
But
Wow.
it's only because that person had connections with the limousine rider. It was his aunt that was the limousine rider.
Uh,
But it made it kind of like, and she hardly ever danced with me. She danced with me and her other date. I'm like, I absolutely had no fun at the junior prom. She was crying. I'm like, I
hmm.
wasn't doing well at that time. And finally,
Hmm.
I just ended up quitting baseball. I just got so emotionally exhausted with my life. My dad, 6 months prior, had a heart attack. So it was a massive heart
Wow.
attack. So I was at that time where I wanted to do my own thing. So April to June, I brought my guitar to school and started playing music around the town, around the whole school.
Awesome.
That made me an instant celebrity.
I bet. I
It
bet.
did. It made me an instant celebrity. But it was in June when I lost the schooling, I lost the sports, I lost a lot of structure, and that's where I could not shut my mind off. I just couldn't shut it off.
Wow.
And I was saying some weird things, and I had a break, and I went into this plane where just time just seemed endless,
Uh huh.
and I wasn't in hell because I didn't feel I was in hell. I just was in a different world, but still here present. And so my
Know the
grandmother takes
feeling.
me to my pastor. I say something outrageous to her. I go to the mental hospital for a week, but there I'm like, I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna play jokes on the staff. I'm gonna make
Mm-hmm.
people
Mm-hmm.
laugh. Just the willingness to help people in some way. I got out of there after a week, and after that, I got a little better. They got me on some of the medications. So I've been on Zyprexa for years,
Uh huh.
but then and so I became a substitute teacher. So first I was a tutor, then I became a substitute teacher, and
Okay.
now I'm a spiritual happiness coach, of course. So obviously my life is kind of focused and shifted. Well, it was in
Sure.
2019. I just got so burned out from substitute teaching. I was just like, I
I
got to do
can
something.
understand that.
And over here, the laws they change and the politics they play in the school districts just always frustrate teachers. And you don't do it for the politics; you do it for the kids.
Yeah.
But I was getting so I applied for a job, didn't work out, and I'm just like, what am I going to do? I just got married. Um, I'm kind of being awakened to things, and all of a sudden, COVID hits. I'm like, well, now I got a year off to do what I want and
Yeah.
collect,
Yeah. That's yeah.
collect unemployment for a year, and my wife stepped back from work, so she went to school, and we were able to save enough money at that time for her to step back, and I'm like,
That's good.
now
Yeah.
we're actually walking the streets. We're having a good time. We're going out. We couldn't do much because everything was closed here. I mean,
Right.
California was
Exactly.
part of the most strictest of all the states because of all the people. So we couldn't do much. But we really spent a lot of good time bonding with each other that we didn't have before. And while other couples are getting in fights and
Mm-hmm.
literally calling the police, we're just enjoying time together because
That's awesome.
yeah, so it was my second awakening happening right after my marriage and after my wedding. And I entered into energy healing right after that. My friend from college got into Bombing therapy. So we just did everything. Not only did it get all the mental illness problems out of my subconscious mind, but it also
Mm-hmm.
Also helped me with my insomnia. It helped me with my weight loss. It's helped me with.
Okay.
I had emotional blockages downstairs, and so that's flowing freely now,
Uh-huh.
which is good.
Uh-huh.
So I got into that, and then I decided, well, you're going to be my business partner now because I believe coaching and energy healing are such an impactful tandem. Because
Right.
when you're coaching someone, it's going to bring these emotions up. It's going to unblock them. So that's where the energy comes in, healing comes in, and heals that emotion. So it
Okay.
makes them accomplish their goals a lot faster.
Perfect.
So
Awesome.
we did a few of that during the pandemic, and we had good results with our clients. And then it was when my job came back April 2022, I believe in the summer
Mm-hmm.
2022. My wife goes, maybe you should go back because
Really? Okay.
the business isn't going to be there. I'm going to school, so I did, and they pay me $270 a day to go back, which is not bad money. I'm like
No.
walking right down the street, and it was so eerie seeing a school where only 10 people went to school and the rest was on
Wow.
Zoom. It was just so eerie. And but I was teaching good things and it was fun. I was like, I'm hoping it stays like this forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Easy. Just people on Zoom don't even show up half the time. And
I can believe it. Yeah.
well, parents rally, they want their kids back in schools, which I understand because you have your kid at home and you're working, they're gonna bother you all the time.
You got it. Yeah.
Mommy, daddy, can you do
Yeah,
something?
exactly. Yeah, it would be nonstop probably.
Right. So, regardless, is I went back to work for 2 years and put my wife through college. Paid the bills while she went to college. She graduated. She went back to work for her old company right around
Okay.
that time. And this is the year where a lot of things shifted. So I've been doing energy healing, and I went to my psychiatrist. Goes, hey, I'm at peace. Like, can I come down on medication to 5 milligrams?
Oh, uh-huh.
And he goes, well, sure. He says I can cut that pill in half, but the new psychiatrist I've now says you couldn't cut that pill in half. So here's where it
Okay,
gets
that's
good.
interesting.
So here's where it gets good. I cut the pill in half. Stress comes back in my mind. I feel a chemical imbalance drop within a week, and
Wow.
all of a sudden, my mind is on fire.
Wow.
Yes, because there's one thing I haven't healed, and that was stress.
Yeah, I can see
I
that.
haven't been having a stressful situation with my family. So my business partner goes, we're going to get to the root of this. She got at the root of it, and I was even more at peace.
Oh, wow. That's
And then I asked another
cool.
energy healer, can you heal stress and overwhelm, which is the biggest plague that causes humanity to do things? I lost
Yep.
35 pounds. I changed
Wow.
my habits. I eat a lot healthier now. And I meditated. A lot of meditation during that time because I was not going back to the loony bin.
I don't blame you.
And eventually my spirit kind of elevated in consciousness and I entered into the heavenly realm.
Okay, that's
And
cool.
God comes through my dad and says, hey, leaves a hand on my chest and goes, hey, everything's gonna be okay.
Yep.
And I'm like, I'm trying to process what's happening in my mind. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Because it
I
wasn't
know
his
exactly.
voice. It was not his voice. It was a much deeper voice. So
Uh-huh.
this is just the channel God channeling through my dad. And I told my wife, who's had a lot of experience of her family channeling deities in the Hindu religion, and she goes, "Ray, that's creepy. Don't talk about. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't tell me that."
Really? Okay.
So I took a shower. I started crying, and I did kind of get better. But during that time, I took a long term position for the school district. I helped them out, turned bullies
Okay.
into friends, playing pranks on kids. And I had to do that because the substitute teacher, they see you as someone they can walk all over. So you have to be tough.
Yeah, that, oh yeah. Yeah, for
You got
sure.
to be tough with 30 kids. And I asked
Yeah,
for a
definitely.
lot of
Wow.
support. I asked for help. Never was given any kind of help by administration. The only thing I was asked for was fifth period, but no one helped. Finally, the last day, I bring my beads on that I gave my prayer beads on. I said, I just, but it was that night someone came to our door. The Holy
Uh-huh.
Spirit, Okay. Right around that time I ended the position because I was not well mentally.
Okay.
And I told the school district, "Hey, something happened last night. I can't make it in, so it ended." And then I went to three more. Then I did 3 days as a security guard at Sandra High, and what I found out is someone brought a gun to school that day.
Oh wow.
Right. So this is at a time where mentally I'm a little bit unstable. I'm not really doing too well because of that medication change. That should never happen. And I'm busy trying to get doctor's orders. My wife's gotten involved now, and then her grandpa
Hmm.
dies. Then my wife's grandfather dies, who was actually on her marriage certificate because he was a Hindu priest. So we used him and my pastor. They came together and they married us.
Okay.
And so I'm helping my wife with all that. But as that happens, I begin to decline even more because grief is a trigger for me,
Okay.
especially with some of the things I've had in my life. And so
Hmm.
but all of this, I'm not stressed because I healed stress in the room. So none of this is stressing me out, but it's stressing everybody else out
Yeah, I suppose I could see that.
because
Yeah.
I healed whatever it was. And but I wasn't sleeping at night. The Akashic records are at an all-time high that I entered into, so I was getting all these downloads of information. My mind got real active when I
Hmm.
healed stress and overwhelm and I had all these epiphanies and all these thoughts. So I was writing my book at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, just trying to get thoughts and ideas down. I was writing a journal. And it was in December where
Okay.
I finally got a new psychiatrist that actually has my best interests, and the medication's been working ever since. And I didn't have to go back.
Great.
The awakening led to a healing journey both times. And that's what it should do. Is it leads to your healing journey. It leads to your conscious being
Yes.
elevated as a human being and as a person. And growing up as a Christian, I'm thinking like, well, how do you become like Christ? Because that's the goal as a Christian to
Yeah,
be
exactly.
not necessarily to worship Jesus, but to be like Jesus.
Yes.
And I don't think Jesus cares about our worship. I think he cares. He gave us a model of how to live a life and how to
Amen.
pursue a
Yes.
life and how to actually treat others. Because
Yes.
during his time, you know, I think he was opposed to the fundamentalists of his time. They got real into politics, and the Jews and the Romans were in cahoots with each other.
Yep.
As I've been growing up, I feel that Christianity is following in the same footsteps as Judaism did at that time.
I would agree.
And and I'll tell you right now, so as someone who's aspired to be like Christ his whole life, I've made friends with friends that don't have very many friends. Like a tax collector would not have had very many friends back
No,
then.
true.
I think I had that many friends. So
Nah.
regardless, I've applied Christianity, but there came a time in my life where even Christianity, what it said, what it did, wasn't enough. So I started researching Eastern traditions and
Okay.
other things, and what they said about Jesus. And a lot of Hindus will pray to Jesus as their avatar and as their
Okay.
deities. He has recollection on just the entire world of who this man was in the Middle East, and so he definitely did exist. He was a
Yes.
healer. I don't think it was as magical as the Bible says it is. I think there was a lot more probably happening. I mean, if you think about reality,
Right.
there was probably he was probably living in very extreme dangerous situations. People are getting slaughtered and killed
Yes. Yeah.
by empire, and he's just there at least for 3.5 years in the Middle East, from what we know. And
Yeah.
he's bringing. But you see, back then you could have a following in your town much easier than you can now. Everybody's on their phones, and you
That's
have
pretty
to
much
go
what everybody does. They're not in the moment. They're always on doing something like that. Yeah.
right. So he became popular in his society, and then they put him to death because, well, he was becoming a celebrity in his people. He was actually really helping people, stuff that the Old Testament says to do, which the religious elite probably weren't doing that much of. So, and that's kind of who I wanted to be, is to help people and to heal people. And it was one of the last things that my biomed therapist put on. Was you could turn codes off, but you could put codes on. The last two were awareness and manifesting miracles.
Okay.
So she goes, you got to be careful with this manifesting miracles code, because your words and actions are going to actually
Think
uh,
about.
bring it out. So,
Yeah.
well, I walked down one day and pulled some stuff at the school district, and I got fired
Oh.
because but the story is, so I ended up retiring early anyway. So they don't actually
Okay.
ever legally fire you from the school district, because then you can get unemployment. So what they do is they boot you from all schools. Then they send you something in the mail saying, "Oh, he can't be in schools." But they put me on a no hire list, so I cannot substitute teach for anywhere in the state of California now.
Wow.
Just all for predicting a storm.
Oh my gosh.
So I realized this, and you know what? I'm now free to do what I want. I'm not getting the school district calling me every single morning. The phone calls, and that all it took was just a little miscommunication and a
Mm-hmm.
misunderstanding for
Yep.
me to actually be free and help my wife with her business. And so what happened afterwards, because I don't know if you've read Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza, which is
I
a
don't think
great
so.
book. He teaches you that when something ends over here, something else will actually appear over here. And he teaches that all through meditation and opening
Okay.
up your third eye and your crown chakra and all that stuff. And I realized that now is the time to be with my family.
Yep.
And my grandmother was just put on hospice in April. My
Mm-hmm.
dad's got a lot of challenges, and
I'm
he's
sorry.
stubborn about it. So I realize that right now, in this moment of my life, I'm here for my family. I'm here for my wife. I'm doing much better.
Right. Yeah.
So, in fact, my mental health is actually much better because I get to do the things I love to do. I'm part of this whole module that's being created for the United States of America with all these other speakers. I'm having podcasts probably
Wow.
once or twice a month, and I wasn't able to do this while I was substitute teaching at the same time. There was a few things I did, but I
Mm-hmm.
was, like you said, you do something over here, and then something else happens over here, and this
Yep.
takes time and energy, and you have to do that over there. So I'm so fulfilled going on these shows. I'm so fulfilled. And even though the money isn't there yet, it doesn't matter, because this is what I want to do. I've always wanted to teach.
Yep.
I wanted to teach not inside a little box with 30
Yeah.
kids. I
The
wanted to teach
traditional. Yeah.
outside,
Yep.
getting people together, sharing my knowledge and my healing. And through the Akashic records, I'll tell your audience,
Okay.
Jesus of Nazareth was one of my past lives.
Oh wow. Okay.
And I remember when I looked at my cross in the room, and I go, I'm not going through that again. I'm telling you that.
Yeah. Wow.
Right. So there's a whole list of things about life that Christianity actually doesn't get into, because it's a very the philosophy. We only have four writings of Jesus' account, and the rest is Paul's work and a few other things. Because
Right.
prior to the book being assembled, you had emperors of Rome just literally slaughtering these new Christians,
Mm-hmm.
and you literally had all their writings, all the Gnostic writings. Some of the Gnostic writings were saved in a cave, but the actual Christians that Jesus taught were very spiritually inclined. They were one with the earth. They lived in small communities, and they used Jesus as like kind of like their avatar or their mortar.
Okay.
And they thought that was their path to God, was to continue believing in Jesus and that
Sure.
he'll
Yeah.
come down. And the problem was is that there's all these other different communities of all these leaders trying to actually take fame in Jesus' name, just like you have now in Christianity. This is why it's the
Yeah.
most divided religion in the world, because you have leaders that try to convert people. They bring them into the congregation, and now you have some sort of spiritual control of someone else because you're the actual
Right.
pastor. So I actually had to break free from all of that
Yep.
to actually become free and escape the matrix.
Yeah. I agree.
Because there's so many things that there's just, and I always started to realize, so to really actually paint it to me what I am actually now,
Hmm.
I would say I'm more of an omnist. An omnist is someone who just sees truth in all religions, but no religion is actually true. Because religion is basically man made,
Yep.
but it's
It
just
is.
a language to get to the Most High. And then
Yeah.
we have spirituality, which a lot of people you talking about, people think you're crazy these days. It's not. It's something that's
True.
important for everybody to get out. But that's why you see these spiritual groups that are so huge because out in public, you can wait. You on drugs? Does that make sense? This guy's acting kind of
Yeah.
weird.
Yep. They think that.
So there's religious spirituality, but then there's consciousness, which is completely different than actual religion and spirituality. And consciousness is just doing the right thing, healing yourself, helping people. It's kind of like when you watch the movie Evan Almighty with Steve Carell,
Uh-huh.
and Morgan Freeman comes in as God because he was God in Bruce Almighty, and he goes, "The way to change the world is do one act of random kindness a day."
Amen.
And if everybody could just do one random act of kindness a day, the world will transform.
I 100% agree with that. Yeah. But to get
So
out, I mean,
I,
yeah.
growing up, I preferred Bruce Almighty because that was hysterical.
Uh-huh.
And he starts making the tomato soup in the Red Sea and and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
it's all a prelude. It's all. I think all these movies in Hollywood they have access to knowledge and information. I think these movies were preparing us for challenging times. And I do
I think
think
so.
now you're going to see a lot of spiritual leaders, a lot of light workers that are going to just step up and try to help the world. But I would say I'm definitely more of an avatar. I'm someone who's very, very spiritually inclined, someone who's always looking to help someone start conversation at coffee shops,
That would be me
conversation.
too.
Yeah, and so there's so much to life that I feel would have been there in Christianity if all those writings are not burnt down. So around the time they were burning them down, they did hide some things in the cave, but and they found that in a cave in the early 1900s, and you started seeing other writings about Jesus and what he may have said in Mary Magdalene. They found the gospel according to Judas. They found the gospel according to James. Every story has a different account of who this man is. So obviously, this
Yeah.
man did exist,
Oh, yes. Yes.
and he did
100%.
exist, and he was a healer. But I'm not sure how much I trust Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John that the Catholic Church has had its hands in it the last.
They wouldn't do that.
Oh no, they would never do that.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. Sure. But I
Yeah.
still think it's a great read because if you could get past the miracles, just go straight to the teachings.
Right.
There's some very important wisdom in there. The Lord's Prayer, the Beatitudes,
Yep.
the Sermon on the Mount, and these were teachings that came from the Gospel according to Q. So about
Okay.
40 years after his he died, there was this gospel that came out. It was just his teachings. Then it was the Gospel of Thomas. Then it was the Gospel of Mark.
Hmm.
Then Matthew and Luke drawed upon Mark, and then John came much later.
Okay.
So that's kind of how it is. It's just in the Bible, it seems like Matthew's first because the way they put it together is because it seemed like he was born a virgin, but in the Gospel of Mark, there's no virgin birth. It starts with his baptism. So
Okay.
they're coming together in the writings. They're coming together. They're like, well, if he had to get baptized, that means he actually sinned in life because that's to wash away sin. So they're thinking,
Hmm.
well, how do we make this man a perfect man? So basically, they changed the narrative to say, okay, it's to fulfill life's promises. It's a fulfillment. So that's why I think baptism is more of a fulfillment than washing away Adam and Eve.
Okay.
It's more of a fulfillment to get closer to God, and I like to think that way because it's more positive.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I've done enough of my own sins to worry about what Adam and Eve did a long, long time ago. I think
We all have, yes.
Even if they even did exist, and there's some knowledge saying out there that the story of Adam and Eve could be the story of the sun and the moon, because the sun and the moon were lovers at one time too, in an astrological sense. So
True.
we don't know exactly. And if you think about it, like when the sun's out, you feel safe, you could do things. When the moon's out, you probably want to be in the house.
Yeah, you kind of get I know that the feeling. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, nothing ever happens good at night. It just doesn't,
True.
unless you're, you know, in a car and you're going straight to your house and you want
Mhm.
to go straight home. So yeah, no, it's a little bit more what I do as a business owner, and I've shared a lot of knowledge to your listeners here. But
I mean, so how long have you been a spiritual coach?
I've been a spiritual happiness coach for about 3.5 years now. I was actually in the middle of figuring out, am I going to be a spiritual coach or relationship coach? I was
Uh-huh.
caught in between, and I'm like, well, let me just combine the two. And when you combine the two,
There you go.
you become a spiritual happiness coach. So I've coached a little bit on career, and I've coached on relationships. I've coached people with their businesses, because you got to focus on where people are at in their life.
True. Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely.
A lot of coaches, a lot of programs will tell you, well, you need to market. Well, it's important to market. It's important to put yourself out there, but at the same time, what exactly are we really selling? When you market something, you're trying to sell a product.
True.
My wife does marketing so someone can buy her clothes online, but as a coach, you're really no different than a therapist or a counselor. So it's about the relationship you develop with others, the relationships you develop in society. And when you have clients, the relationship you develop with them, so that you can actually get clients now complete in the insight coaching way. You can get them on. There's so many ways to get clients. So I decided what I was going to do is go on podcasts, speak on stage, and
Sure.
meet people in my community in person.
I love that. I think that
So
is
the podcast stage speaking was long term, but I just figured there's only got to be three ways I got to grow my business. Now, if I wanted to hire a marketing agency, that comes later.
okay.
But because I'm not a marketer, I'm a creator, I'm a healer.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I
I'm not
definitely
a
hear you.
marketer. I'm not someone that's just going to market.
Yes. Yes.
I'm someone who just comes in and helps your life. So the program I've developed, what I did in October, was happiness, health, wealth, and law of attraction for business owners,
Okay.
but also for people who are working a 9 to 5. They have a job, but maybe towards the end, maybe there is a passion that you have that you like to make money doing. Because my wife did that, and I've really helped her with that. I've helped my business owner the last 3.5 years turn her passion into
Uh-huh.
purpose and making money. And that's so important these days here in America, because one, two jobs doesn't count anymore.
Huh, that's for sure.
And it doesn't matter what state you're in.
No, it's yeah,
You got to have at
it's
least three now, and if not even
pretty
maybe
much.
four means of making income to accomplish the same goals
Yeah. Yep.
as our. I would say in the 80s, the two income household was the solution to the problem. And now it's like a three or four income that's the solution to the problem.
No,
And
I definitely
that
I
means you're
agree.
going to have less time for children, less time for families, less time for a lot of different things, because you have to make money to survive in this new world. And I'm starting to realize it really doesn't matter who's in Washington. It's all corporate
I
America.
would agree. Very
Corporate
much.
America is controlling things. You got a whole list of
They are.
secret community that are there, and whatever they say is going to go. And we're going
Yep.
to you can either like you can either I always say you can either actually you know do your thing, or you could join them. So I'm going to try and join them.
Hmm. Yeah. No. So I got to ask. It's Dream Kitchen podcast. What were your dreams when you were a kid?
Oh, when I was a kid,
Yeah.
you know, it was hard. I didn't have very too many dreams.
Okay.
I just I was it was just getting through the day.
Yeah.
I knew I was never going to be a baseball player. I knew I was never going to be a basketball player. I knew I was never going to be some great athlete. I wasn't very athletic growing up, but even though I played sports and was good at it,
Hmm.
I always kind of lived in the moment. even as a kid. I just because when you're
Good.
being bounced around from house to house,
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to have what you foresee your future to be.
And I could definitely see that. If you're not just in one
Well,
place,
I'll just
you're all
explain to
over.
your listeners on Monday, mom's house, Tuesday, grandma's house, Wednesday, other grandma's house, Thursday, mom's house, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, dad or mom. That was my life until I was 18.
Wow.
And then, so when I was 18, I moved in with my grandmother and I walked to college. So
Okay.
it's college right up the street from where she lived. I'm just, I'm just like, okay, fine. This is my life. I found happiness and pleasure at Merritt College. I became a tutor. Then I went to East
Okay.
Bay when my grandma sold her house because she was too sick. I went over into went to East Bay, moved with my dad, and
Okay.
then when I graduated from college, I almost lost my dad through
Oh,
heart failure, but he's miraculously survived because he's a strong man.
very good.
And I became a substitute teacher, and then I just, like I said, I just kind of magically fell into life coaching because as a teacher of life, which I consider myself,
Hmm.
it was the best platform for me to be on.
Yeah. No, I can see that.
And it still allows me to have flexibility to help my family. I'm an only child. Like, what do you want me to do? So I help my
Okay.
wife, and you do make a considerable amount of money to where you don't really have to have a ton of clients to actually make it as a coach. I don't have to have 50 clients or 40 clients or 30
Right.
clients. If I were to actually really think about it, I think I don't want anything more than 15. That's
Okay.
a lot. I mean, because the more you do it, the more I absorb their emotions, the more I
Oh
hear
yeah, I can see that.
reality.
Yeah.
The most I'd want is probably about 15 or maybe 15 as time progresses. And if your audience is applauded by this podcast, which I'm pretty sure they will be, um, I'm here for you, man.
Okay.
We're all kind of going through things, and we're all going through
Very
challenges.
true. Yes.
As you could see, what happened in Kansas City after the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl basically there was a shooting there, so we can't even
Yep.
celebrate without the threat of a mass shooter these days.
Yeah.
And so we want to have fun, but we got to be smart in the way we do it.
I would agree. So how do you get your clients? How do people find you?
I'm all over the internet. I have a website, reallifeme.com. I have a Facebook page. I have an Instagram. I have a LinkedIn. I've kept my business circle small the last couple of
Okay.
years because my family dynamic is very challenging with their health issues. I don't think I want tons of clients right now because I'm guiding my wife through her insecurities and emotional insecurities right
Sure.
now. And
Sure.
of course, my grandmother's in hospice right now, so that
Yeah.
that
That
takes a
makes
lot
it
of
tough.
time. That takes a lot of emotional effort. But as time goes on, they could find me on IG or Facebook at Ray of Life Me, or they could look at Raymond Freitas on LinkedIn. I have a YouTube channel at Raymond Freitas 4532. I have a few songs on there. I play the
Okay.
band. I
Cool.
play the guitar banjo, and I speak.
Yeah. Okay.
I speak
Okay.
knowledge to music, so I combine knowledge and
I
music
like
at the
that.
same time. And so I'm doing that on my YouTube. And if I find clients, it's usually through, social media. And you could do it through social media, although I'm not liking what I'm seeing on social media. So I think I'm pivoting towards Meetup because in Meetup, which is an app where you actually meet
Yep.
people in person and you get to
Yes.
talk about things.
Yep.
I think and that's actually a growing app as we speak right now, and it's getting more popular. So that's probably where I'm going to be getting a lot of my local clients. But
Sure.
the other two places will be speaking on stage and podcast because podcast long term gives you exposure over the internet,
Yeah.
and then the summits will stage speaking. So other than that, right
Okay.
now I'm kind of living in the moment
That's
and
good.
just enjoying
So
life. I don't have to work for a toxic school district anymore.
that sounds like
I
a
can
good
see
thing.
and just seeing my wife be successful is just enough for me right now. And just having her scale and having her go in the world and doing
Yep.
her business, working her job. But
No, I
I
think
told
that is
myself it'd be very difficult to have 10 clients while my grandma's on hospice. She needs a lot of care, and a lot
Yeah.
of support
And
right
that
now, and
priority, yeah, that's for sure. So,
yeah, she needs a lot of care, and she's getting a lot of support. But uh,
yeah,
when
it's
she
tough.
goes, that'll be the time to put more energy into real life, and
Yeah.
and I will, and I've gotten a lot of spiritual support from other card readers and other people saying, "Hey, it's going to be great. You just got to be patient. It's going to happen on God's timing."
Yep. Yep.
And yeah, so to explain a little bit what the man of misunderstandings means, which I
Mm-hmm.
put in your little thing, your little paperwork that you got.
Uh-huh.
So the man of misunderstandings is just a term meaning that in the Jewish religion, misunderstanding just means miracle. There's a miracle that happens. There's a situation. It's a misunderstanding, but then there's something positive came out of it.
Okay.
So everywhere I go, I've been performing miracles in public. But
Awesome.
you see, the rest of the world's not aware of it, so they have no clue of actually what's happening.
Right, right.
So I'm not gonna. But there's gonna come a book that explains what I'm doing in public, and
Okay.
that's my second book. Probably wouldn't share it on a podcast. We just don't have enough time.
Okay.
But the whole community knows who I am now.
Awesome.
So
And, and
uh,
you've written a book already?
I have a book that's written. I have to edit it. I just
Okay.
got it back from my aunt Anna, who edited it. She's an environmental lawyer, so she's very smart and she knows how to edit.
Wow.
And so I'm going through. I'm like, man, this is going to take me months to edit. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I want to actually like run my business, but now I'm like, okay, let me just finish editing the book first because this is going to take me hours and hours
Oh,
and
yeah. A
hours. So,
long time.
but it's called "How the Modern Day Mystic Achieved Happiness Living with Mental Health: A Beacon of Light of Hope for Others." So
Okay.
I don't think I think there are ways to manage your mental health better than what the Western medicine tells us to do. You get a therapist, you have a therapist, you get your medication. That only goes so far. When you hit therapy, you're
Yes.
going to hit a wall. So joining Toastmasters was beneficial for me. That helped me with my growth. But then it was also getting in the holistic side of things because that healed a lot of emotions. So when I went
Uh-huh.
back on the medication, I'm no longer suffering from that. My depression's gone, my anxiety's gone. Meditation helps me kind of just soothe my mind, slows my mind down. And yeah, so I no longer have anxiety. I have no longer depression. I don't really get manic anymore.
Good.
All those things you can heal. You can heal any of those emotions. The thing is, the environment we have around us can put those emotional codes back on. So it's a consistent,
Yes.
continuously work, and it's continuously of self care. And I cannot put how emphasis on self care, how important that is,
I would agree. Yeah, definitely.
especially for influencers and coaches, but also for people that follow us. Self care is so important. But as a spiritual happiness coach, you know, there's a lot of things I can help people with. You know, if they're thinking of starting a business, but their wife
Mm-hmm.
is like, I don't think you should start this. Something's going to come with it. What do you do with your relationship? But my book that comes out shows all the different problems that I solved and within the family dynamic. I can even
Okay.
solve if you're stressed out about the political situation in America, because that's
Yeah.
stressing people out right now.
Oh, it is.
On one hand, you got an old 81-year-old Joe Biden who could barely speak.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you got someone and then a whole party that thinks it's okay to enter into the bedrooms of American citizens. So
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with this country because
I don't either.
I have family that are Republican, that are very nice people, that are good people, that are good old fashioned traditional family values. They're conservative. But then I have people that are liberal in my life. And I'm like, well, I mean, can we all just get along again, like Rodney King said?
Yeah, yes.
It has to be about respect. It
100%. Yes.
used to be I could vote for someone and not be afraid of getting killed in the
I,
process of
I hear
doing.
you. Yeah.
So whether you vote for, and they're both actually not well in the head. Both candidates are
No.
not well in the head right now.
And you said the one
And
couldn't talk, the other one can't be quiet. So
right, no. So it's kind of like, what do you do? Well,
yeah.
I mean, so I wouldn't be surprised if I'm in tears to come down voting day. So,
Yeah.
but
No, I
but unfortunately, you know, we're getting in that time. And as a coach, it's not about politics. It's about helping people see their fullest potential.
Really?
So it makes us kind of centrist. I see their point of view. I see your point of view. It makes us neutral in a lot of different things
Yes. I
because we're
mean,
not there to promote a political agenda. We're there to promote healing and self development and self improvement.
amen. Oh, amen. I love that. So where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years with this? Where would you like to see yourself?
That's a good question. I try not to look that far down only because my whole life I've always taken the next step towards happiness.
Well, and I think that's great. I mean, would you have your own podcast sometime?
Eventually, I think I'm going to have it with my business partner, and it'll happen within about a year. Right now, we have an
Okay.
IG live show on IG, which we're building. But I
Really?
told her,
Okay. Cool.
you got to actually, you're going to build that following, and then you're going to turn that into a podcast.
Awesome. That sounds like a great plan.
Eventually, we will have our own podcast, but her grandmother just died herself, so I've been helping her through that and
Oh,
helping her through that. But I told her now, your grandma's the reason why you went and lived in Texas. So now you can live whatever you want. You got this whole.
right.
She's
Exactly.
doing fine. I mean, and she's helping me through my emotional struggles with my family. She's a good person. She just texted me just after speaking to her.
Uh-huh.
Good
That's cool.
person. She gets along well with my wife, and my wife has accepted her as part of the circle, and which is good
That is.
because a lot of women probably wouldn't like that.
No, that's good. That's very
Yeah,
good. So,
it's good. So no, we're doing fine, and you know, I have my two cats that always are getting into mischief in the
I can't
house. And
imagine cats doing that. Not at all. So,
yeah, well, these
no.
cats are very
Love
well
cats.
behaved, and
Uh-huh.
we trained them well to stay in the yard and the house. But they're like little babies; they'll knock over something because they get over
Oh,
there,
yeah.
and they're like, "Oh
Sounds
my
like a
god!"
cat. So, no, that's cool.
But this has been a great podcast, Mark. I thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thank you, Raymond. And before we end the podcast, is there anything else you want to tell the audience before we end?
Well, I want to share to the audience that it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. You're welcome to get help from me. Whether
Cool.
you're struggling with your job, you have a disconnection with your job or your relationship. That's what I'm here for. So
Awesome.
obviously, I've shared a lot of my knowledge of the history. I've shared my knowledge of what's going on now. I'm someone who's coming from just empathy and
Mm-hmm.
pureness for you, and I'm here to help you in whatever life struggles you're in. Mark Larson, you have my contact information,
Yes. We'll
and
share
if you
that in the
want,
show
see
notes.
it underneath the podcast.
Yes.
Yeah, if anything, just love yourself, love your family,
Yep.
and understand that our older loved ones are not going to be there forever. So you want to spend that time and don't
Yeah,
live
they're going too
life
soon.
with regrets.
Very much amen. Yes.
Don't live life with regrets.
Yeah.
So do the things you say you're going to do. Don't be a procrastinator. Don't be a hypocrite. If you're going to do something, just go and do it.
Yeah.
What's stopping you?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what most people do. Most things they say, they're going to do it or someday they're going to do it, and they don't. So, and then time runs out,
And then they
and
regret.
all too soon.
But that's my final message for your audience.
Okay, that sounds great, Raymond. So, well, thank you for being my guest on the Dreamcatcher podcast. I look forward to keeping in touch with you and seeing your journey. Maybe when you get your podcast and everything else that you're coming up with, I would like to see you on stage too. I think that'd be awesome too. So,
Unfortunately, it's no longer the times of Tony Robbins where you're doing this course of three people, a whole bunch of people, and you're going to see a lot more virtual stuff.
I would agree very much.
I don't know if we're going to go back because there's so many viruses and people are getting sick even still.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's going to be big convention centers like it used to be. I
I
don't
wonder
know.
that too. Yeah.
I wonder that. I wonder about it. But if I get a summit or a virtual retreat, I think the coaching industry is starting to understand that you can get more people online.
Yes. Yes.
The challenge is when there's 80 speakers on one event, how are you going to stand out?
Not you. Wow, it'll be tough. Yeah, that's a lot
Right.
of speakers. Yeah.
So, yeah, no, if I get an opportunity, I'll take it.
Sure.
And yeah, so for right now, I'm doing fine. And thank you for having me on the podcast, Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Raymond. And we'll end it there. And thanks again. And have a great rest of your day. And we'll be talking soon.
Thanks, Mark.
Mm.